This movement in the form is often called peng. It's Chinese for boing. It's sometimes compared to water supporting a boat. That doesn't describe the movement so much as it does the quality of the geodesic. So the shape that your body has when a person pushes you and it connects right to the ground in a very narrow, precise, adaptable geodesic. So when they push on you, they are pushing the earth. So you have this shape, and in the form, it looks like this. In fact, peng, that quality, is everywhere all the time. You never want to lose that alignment, that engagement. You always want that no matter where a person pushes you or punches you, that they are connecting with the earth, with that centripetal geodesic. And this precision of that geodesic allows you to meet their change, meet their movement with a non-differential. So you learn how to neutralize their pressure by engaging it into the ground and then pivoting. So they can never actually find your center. So peng is not about being powerful or being like a wall or being like an ocean. It's about being really very subtle. And the way that it does that is because, like water supporting a boat, it only supports it one direction. It does not stop the boat from moving sideways. I had a teacher once who said, you flow like a river in the winter time. So it was telling me to relax a little. So I was frozen water. So you want to be liquid water, or even vapor, somewhere between there. And you want to be able to dissolve their force by rolling and pivoting around that point. I often say moving at right angles to their pressure, but we're really talking about angular momentum. So when a person pushes, you pivot around an axis, and they are not the axis, so therefore they are moving. And if you can be the axis, be that still point, then they are the ones who are attached to the wrong frame of reference. And they don't mess with yours, they mess with another one. So as the person pushes, I pivot on the forearm like this. So this arm rotates like that. I can turn on the index finger, the middle finger, the ring finger, the little finger. It's going to change the way that this rotates depending on where I put the axis on this arm. The default is this finger. We'll call it the index finger, or both of them. Or you can do the middle finger, but some people think that's rude. Or you can do the little finger, or the little finger, which some people think is insulting. But again, that's their attachment to their own frame of reference. It's not our problem. So we can make it theirs, which can be a little annoying. It gets on people's nerves. Anyway, hopefully this mic didn't pick that up. You didn't hear any of that. It's a secret. It's a secret kung fu stuff. So when you rotate the forearm, that's one axis around which you are rotating. But you are also combining that with a rotation around the axillary line. So it's like a set of gears. So when a person pushes, you roll, and that is like the water allowing the boat to move sideways. So any force that they apply that is not directly along that geodesic ends up causing the rotation, and they end up contributing to their own angular momentum. There. Like that. So we don't mind a person pushing us as long as they miss. Then they can push as hard as they want. And we make them miss by defining what the target is. So we define the target. That's what makes them miss. They push, we change the target, and they roll off. Okay. Cool, eh? So you push, you rotate, like that. So when I do the positive circle here, peng, and then I roll the hands, that's that rolling. There. That rolling is this way, but it's not causing motion this way. It's simply connecting and spiraling into my own feet. So the rotation reinforces the vortex. Okay. The rotation around these axes, which are lined up through the body with the ground, it's like a tornado, right? The tornado is really spirally like that. So what happens is that that central axis changes shape, again, like that guitar string I talked about. Okay. The guitar string rotates, and that spiral goes right down through the ground into your feet. So you become more stable and more balanced, and they become much less stable and less balanced. And they defeat themselves. Peng. Rotate around the axes, or the combinations of axes. You basically rotate around the centripetal geodesic. So, from here, rotate, and then when the left hip goes back, I pivot around this auxiliary line again, so I'm going this way, but the right hand, depending on the exact transfer of weight, I can keep the weight on the front axis, and my right hand is actually going forward before it goes back. So the arc is this shape, not this shape. It goes out. You are extending the radius. So here, this is peng, pivoting around this axis, and then you shorten the radius, and then you alter the center as you come back, and then turn. So, peng, spiral. Here. So let's try that facing this way. I step forward in a right forward bow stance, like this. And the right hand does a positive circle. The left hand starts to do a negative circle. And then I rotate the forearms. I rotate around the right axis. And I can rotate the waist and the spine also. So it's like a double vortex that goes to the same place. And then the left hip comes back. So it's like the positive and negative circle we did the first time, but I'm making the circle a lot smaller. So from here, the right hand does a positive circle, the left hand does a negative circle, but they make it's much more of an ellipse. So rotate, rotate. So this is still a positive circle, still a negative circle. Turn. And you can make this circle really tight. And make the ellipse really tight. So you can make a really sharp turn here and then come back, the hands at the same level. And then a really tight curve at the end there. And then here. Now let's do it on the other side. So a left forward bow stance. The left arm does a positive circle, the right arm does a negative circle. So, peng. And now, so we're essentially doing the same thing as we did in the last lesson, but we're making it a little tighter. So instead of going out and down, I just go out and roll, and then come back. So the lead arm is not moving much at all. Actually, it's not moving. It's just connecting and changing shape, pivoting around that central axis. So, there. Turn the right arm and come back. So the right arm is doing a negative circle, and the left arm is doing a positive one. From here, the left arm comes up and to here. The right arm comes down to here. And then they both turn and roll back. Then the left hand comes up, the right hand comes up the outside. They come to the center and turn, roll, turn, peng. And what you are practicing is stillness. You are practicing feeling that centripetal geodesic and finding the still point along through the body around which that axis rotates. So here, shoulders down, elbows dropping, relax. The left hand comes up, and I'm pivoting around this axis. That's the still point. And now these are the axes. And then the left side is the axis again. And then I get to here, and now briefly the right side is the axis. And the forearms again. I say we are moving reference frames. So the different parts of the body, each is its own frame of reference. And what we do is we combine reference frames and then disassemble them. And so I might identify with my left axis, and the body is rotating around that axis. And then it stops for a moment as I rotate around these axes. So these move now relative to this reference frame. And then this becomes still as the body pivots around the left leg. This is the non-inertial observer here. So the body is pivoting around this. So I am pivoting around the left hip. And then peng. So I'm working on feeling that connection to the ground through that centripetal geodesic, pivoting around still points. You're able to move from one reference frame to another because you don't identify with any one of them in particular. As soon as you start to identify with a particular reference frame, your opponent has a target. As long as you don't have a reference frame that you identify with, then they cannot define you. They can only define themselves relative to various reference frames. And that becomes a very confusing thing to fight. It's hard to hit the crosshairs in the middle when neither one of the hairs is on the same target. Do you know what I mean? Vern? Right? So if somebody's aiming for this intersection of a reference frame, this is your attachment to something. And you can move these like this, and they can still chase around that target because it's a two-dimensional thing. It's really easy. But if you do this, and then this, because these are not attached, it's very hard for them to hit that point. So they would have to move over there in order to see the crosshairs. See? Or they'd have to move over there to see the crosshairs. So by simply changing your shape, changing the shape of the frame of reference, you put your center here, you put your center there, you move this relative to this, or you keep it still relative to that, and you move this relative to that, and by changing and assembling and disassembling your reference frames, you can become undefinable to your opponent. So really, the best way to win a fight is not exist independently of anything else. Become one with the universe. That's sort of what that means. I discuss this more in a video I'm working on called Primordial Relativity. It's like general relativity, but without all of the extraterrestrial math that's required to explain how it is that gravity sucks up space and light creates space, that sort of thing. We'll get to that later. Very good. More practice.